Our story begins with a mouse man, more precisely a little Jeroboam, fully capable of speech, theft, murder, and fully equipped with a little assless pair of chaps, a poncho, and by God you know he's got one of the finest cowboy hats money can buy.
Can't believe you gave me assless chaps. This was not discussed. Okay.
Sorry, you can scratch the assless chaps.
Standing above him is a broad-shouldered, crocodilian humanoid with a flat-top cowboy hat, a frilled leather coat, and an arm the size of a grown man's forearm. This is Croker Bishaw. But our little waxed mustache Jeroboam don't care about none of that as he counts his earnings that he's been given for handing over a conspicuous briefcase to this crocodilian gentleman.
Now, Cash Money McCoy, you gotta make sure we paid you correctly. We don't want no trouble from you and the smuggler mice. Once we've seen your legendary accounting skills in action, we'll be on our way.
You were short 2 G's.
What was that?
Yeah, what seems to be the problem, Cash?
This man is short 2 G's.
2 G's, huh? You're gonna fall through f***ing G's, Mr. Bishaw. You wanna mess with the smuggler mice?
No problem. No, here's your money, Cash. Me and the boys and the Silver Snake Gang don't count as well as you do.
Croker Bishaw hands over the remaining money to McCoy's trusted companion and makes his way back onto Old Girl Bill. Now, deals like this one go down almost every day here in Bad Town, and being the representative of the law in a lawless land, a man's gotta pick and choose his battles, or he'll find himself bleeding in the ditch.
So I'm just thinking, right, that I really wish I could hear what those were talking about, but at the same time, maybe there's got to be some advantages to being deaf. I don't know. But the last time I ended up in a gutter, I woke up and I couldn't hear a thing. I'm angry. I'm sitting there. I'm seething. I'm deaf as of only the last, I'm going to say, fortnight. I didn't realise that there was a series of tunnels underneath the f***ing town. And it was when I tried to get into that network that I got knocked out and woke up without being able to hear.
He sits there recounting the bad times he has in Bad Town as he watches a familiar face roll by.
Squash Marsh. He's a chinchilla and he always has this smarmy look on his face. I don't know what he does, but I know he's rolling in bank. I know he's in some dirty dealings.
Moving on from a bitter sheriff who's oh so tempted to pull that trigger again, we cut across the red sand to 2 figures riding into town with a sunset on their heels and a mountain of dust being kicked up into the sky.
See it swing in the wind, connect to his hat, a glistening coin, catching the sun like a, I don't know, like something, like a sun catcher or whatever.
Like a sun catcher.
I don't fucking know what that's called, but it looks real cool. Yeah, and then he has these round glasses that are pink, which really doesn't go with it, but they sure are eye-catching. And they're round and pink. Yeah.
Just like a corn, but not pink. The corn.
Exactly. It's round like a corn, but it's on his face.
What intelligence does Gideon have?
He has -2, sir.
There we go.
And riding beside this intimidating badass himbo is a sea green tiefling called Genevieve.
She is quite a small but stout tiefling, and as you said, she got a can of whoop ass in her eyes. She's out for blood. She's out to kill. She's on a mission. This is Genevieve.
Title of the movie comes down. This is Genevieve.
I guess about her,
Her boobies.
I mean, tits are out. She's not playing. She looks like she's just come out of some sort of like tavern night of dancing and drinking. She's got her eye on something or someone, and they're not going to be alive by the time she's finished with them.
And that individual just so happens to be Diego's right-hand man.
Yeah, and he's an elephant. Yeah, but he has a really long neck.
Just one long
That's so upsetting.
Hell yeah.
Long leg mailman himself. A man of legend and cunning.
All I know is that he has a mad lisp. Listen, you wanted my help.
Okay.
Diego! Get here!
He's literally Cartman from
Yes. My long leg man. They call me long leg man. You guys ain't gonna pet me.
I continue to ask my players who else they had their eyes on, and as for Gideon,
Well, he had his eyes on something a bit more capable.
Is this little gnome with a really long beard that is tied into pigtails. And he's called
Tim.
He's called Tim. And he has two
Little
stakes.
Tim. Are they sharp sticks or?
No, they're blunt. Two stakes. But he looks like he can wield them. And Gideon has a respect for
My
that.
whacking
But he looks like he can wield.
The riders bound as quickly as they could after their targets, but just missed the train, and Genevieve's horse was spent. Cash Money, in the meantime, was counting his earnings one last time as the train pulled out of Bad Town.
Hey, so we got some bad news. Your kids, remember they were hanging out around the bar, the saloon? Well, I went in for a little drink, and it turns out that hat, the really big brim hat with the felt and the beautiful design, it's just gone on the head of, Diego Montoya.
I squint at him. Very squintily.
I squinted him very squintedly.
Squint.
You were telling me that, first of all, you were drinking while you were supposed to be working?
But it was so dry, and you know how a small drink it can sharpen me up, you know, in case anyone pulls a gun or something.
You know, Randall, there's a reason we don't give you guns. Everyone else here except you and me, everyone else has a gun, but there's a reason you don't have a gun. So, to understand this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, please interrupt me at any time. You say my kids were in a hat, and that hat is now...
The hat, it went on the head of Diego Mentiras. There was nothing I could do.
So, Diego Mentiras has gotten on that moving train with the hat with my kids in it? This is what you're telling me. This is the news you're delivering right now, Randall.
As Cash Money looked on to watch the train leaving, he saw Diego hanging out the side, holding his hat, grinning, before sliding into the train. Dalton was asked to deal with Randall as Cash Money McCoy tried to figure out a way to save his kids. But as Dalton and Randall scrapped, more people in the saloon made their way out to join the ruckus. A good fight hadn't been had here in a long...
Now, fights better break out there. I can't hear shit, so I'm pretty trigger happy these days. You get back inside, Curly McCraw. You f***.
You see that overground bunny?
Yeah.
He's a good shot.
Impressed by the sheriff, Gideon and Jan thought they could use him, and so Jan gave him a little bit of her signature charm.
I love bar wenches.
His kryptonite!
That is the whole reason I
love
this job.
wenches.
I love wenches. I took this job to protect the bar wenches. Turns out they don't really need protection, but I'm still very much into them. Look, right, I can understand some gesticulation. Use your body to communicate with me. And
like back, like, oh, he's a creep, but you got him.
Yeah, but we need you to join us on the train because you're a good shot. Payment sorted, and she'll push her boobs together.
His eyes bulge. so when you do that, right, my poncho just suddenly you hear like a, and the poncho kind of gets like bigger, but not like where you.
Oh, he's puffed up.
Oh my God!
He's puffed up.
Yeah.
With a high enough roll, Jen managed to convince him. And Spitjack gave her his horse, and he rode with Gideon. And Cash Money McCoy, hearing all this, snuck on the back of Gideon's horse in hopes to catch up with the train too and save his kids. And so our crew rode off into the sunset and into the fast approaching storm.
Spitjack has a bunch of ass in his face right now.
I may love a bar wench, but I'm still a bisexual bunny.
No one's safe. Hide your husbands, hide your wives.
The party raced across the Badlands after Old Girl Bill, an old arcane steam engine that the Silver Snake Gang were using to smuggle some mysterious goods. But this is also where Diego, the Silver Devil himself, held Cash Money McCoy's children hostage, as well as holding something very dear to old Gideon. The party wasn't too far behind the train, but they knew if they didn't hurry, the glass storm that was brewing up would catch up with them. A storm filled with superheated glass and sands that would swallow them up and add them to the Badlands collection of glass sculptures.
I presented a series of skill challenges to my players as they tried to catch up to this train, and with each failure they would make, they would fall a little behind and the storm would get a little closer. So the first act of this one-shot was very role-play oriented, with like a touch of exploration here and there, but the second act of this adventure was very focused on skill challenges, primarily using DC20's skill challenge system. This is something I've used a lot in 5th edition, but it felt a lot more intuitive this time around, especially with the way the skills and abilities are laid out in DC20, and I really love the way you can upgrade skills and abilities, going from like novice to adept to expert to master and then finally grandmaster. It's really, really cool. And so now I had the players use their skills in very interesting ways to like catch up with the train. One example is that the player of Genevieve asked if they could use their Shield of Faith spell to kind of protect people from the storm. And so what was lovely about this system is it has a whole mechanic where you can like boost up spells by paying additional mana for the spell. And I was like, absolutely, you can do that, 100%. I love it when people use their resources in skill challenges and things, and I like to reward them for it. And so she threw out these golden tendrils from her fingertips, which created this net over the entire party. And while this was all going on, she noticed Cash Money McCoy hanging on the back of one of these horses, and so asked if she could use one of these gold strings to also lasso poor Cash onto her lap. And so she did.
It's safe.
Did Cash Money McCoy come from? What the f*** are you doing here?
Very, very Look at the boobs I've landed on. I look.
You get off that maiden. You cheeky little bastard.
No. I'll be kind. I won't put him on my boobs. I'll put him in my lap. We've just met.
What the fuck?
David, you're here in your head. You.
I can hear again.
Gideon's just gonna kick him again.
I'll scream again.
It's so chaotic.
So, with some successful checks from Gideon using athletics and acrobatics to power his horse through the storm, or Spitjack using things like survival to assess the fastest route to the train, the party managed to get onto the train without a hitch. But unfortunately, the horses never made it. And some of you may have noticed that Cash Money McCoy has been telepathically communicating with some of the party members and might have assumed this is something similar to the message cantrip from 5th edition. But in actual fact, this is a special ability unique to this tiny Jeroboam that is Cash Money McCoy, because they are playing one of DC20's unique classes that is called the Scion.
This is such a cool class that is all about like mentally assaulting people's minds and also physically throwing them around the place, which you'll see later. But it is so much fun, and Cash Money McCoy just stole the show at so many moments in this game with this class. They are fantastic.
And so after a little role playing, the party did eventually find out that Cash Money McCoy could telepathically communicate with people, and so asked them to be a translator of sorts to the poor deaf Spitjack, who couldn't hear a thing.
Tell him that he ain't getting no grub before we get them kids. You'll get your food after, right? I'll buy you some. Tell him that little mouse.
You get scraps after.
With that, Jan took Spitjack's hand and led the sheriff and the rest of the gang through the carriages of the train, until they finally came to a halt. There, in the next carriage, stood Long-Leg Mailman standing behind a giant-ass ballista, and to his left and right, Timmy Two Sticks and Squash Marsh. And they were ready for them. Everybody rolled initiative.
Now, initiative is super cool in DC20. So you know in D&D when typically your party might roll really, really high in initiative and just sweep up an encounter before the monsters even get to go. So what DC20 does is each encounter has a DC of sorts that you have to beat when you roll initiative. And if the party beats it, whoever rolled highest in initiative typically will go first in the party. They take their turn, and then you bounce over to one of the enemy combatants. They take their turn, and then we bounce back over to party. It goes back and forth between both sides until the entire round of combat is over, and we go back to the top of initiative and go through that order again. And it just really, really balances everything out. But in this case, Gideon rolled highest, so he went first.
He fired at Mailman and missed. He rolled a nat 1. It was still Gideon's turn, but because of the nat 1 that he rolled, Mailman got to use one of his 4 action points to fire his readied ballista. This was an ambush after all. So Mailman fired his ballista and rolled a nat 1. He missed.
So Gideon fired again, but because this is DC20, you have 4 action points. So he spent 1, but he has 3 more action points. He can spend another one here to make another attack, but each additional attack you make after your first attack has a stacked disadvantage. So here he was going to be rolling at regular disadvantage, but what he did is he spent 1 more of his action points to cancel that out. He fired, he hit, he got a heavy hit, which means he did even more damage again, and he blew Mailman's trunk straight off his face. Mailman fell backwards, his ballista firing upwards, tearing a hole through the roof of the train. And now we switch to Squash Marsh, who tried to shove Spitjack through the carriage door and out into the storm, but Spitjack resisted. We then moved to Genevieve, who was up next, and she darted around behind Squash Marsh, threw her chain whip around his neck, and pulled him backwards. I have to say, a bunch of the weapons in DC20 are so cool. They have a massive selection for just whips alone.
Now restrained and smothered by verbal abuse from Spitjack,
You killed your mother. She was a lovely woman.
Squash Marsh broke down and was out of the fight.
As a DM, I don't like to prolong fights if they don't need to keep going on. This guy was beaten in every way, mentally, emotionally, physically, so he was done. He was spent, and they tied him up and arrested him.
Tim Two Sticks had had enough. He made his way over, slowly stroking his two sticks, rolling his thumb over the familiar grain. You think you can come here and beat down my comrades? No. I will not allow such things. I'm going to beat you with my sticks. I'm going to beat you so hard, you won't be able to say Team Two Sticks again. The last thing you will hear as I shove my sticks in the side of your head is the wood tearing through your eardrums.
He says he's gonna shove a stick up your ass.
It was in that moment that Spitjack realized who destroyed his sense of hearing. And now he was here to finish the job. Unfortunately, Spitjack was too slow to react to Tim's two sticks, and his mighty leap into the air as he unleashed his legendary two-stick cross-chop technique and rolled a nat 1. In that moment, these two sticks that had been with Tim since childhood broke in two. Ever since he was bullied as a child, Timmy Two Sticks had used nothing but the wood found in the forest floor to defend himself, beating down anyone who stood in his way. These two sticks had been with him since he was a child, worn, old familiar grain. Never had Tim Two Sticks used a real weapon in his life. But today was the day Tim Two Sticks whipped out two knives.
But what Timmy Two Sticks didn't realize is that Spitjack is a warlord, another unique class to DC20, and so even though Spitjack was in a bit of a disadvantage here, being close up and personal, being a ranged combatant that he is, that did not stop him from commanding his allies to do his dirty work for him.
Well, f***ing shoot him. What's that gun for?
He aims the revolver, and for a split second, you see him kind of angle the revolver a bit at Spitjack. And he starts pulling the trigger a little bit. But I imagine that Genevieve caught it and gives him the side eye. And he's gonna.
Oh no, Two Sticks. Look, it's your worst enemy. A f***ing gun. Shot his f***ing jaw off. He's meant to go to jail. You meant to kill him.
He tells me to shoot. I shoot and he gets mad. This is why I hate the law. Cash Money, can you yell in his ear again?
Could you get him to shave so I can see his f***ing mouth when he moves?
You hear in your head, shooting kills people.
With that, Cash Money McCoy leapt onto Longleg Mailman's face.
Listen, where are my f***ing kids?
Mailman broke like the weasel he was and let them know that they were all in the next carriage over. And so the gang leapt across to the next carriage to face the Silver Devil himself and save both Cash Money McCoy's children as well as Gideon's kidnapped daughter. And there they were, the last remaining members of the Silver Snake Gang. Diego wore a strange artifact on his hand which seemed to magically be connected to the giant dragon skull at the center of the room. And worst of all, the body noticed that the whole place was rigged with dynamite. Gideon hurled a tomahawk at Diego, not wanting to trigger the dynamite, but found his axe suddenly back in his hand again, as if he had never thrown it, and Diego's gauntlet dripped with blood. It seems the artifact works. Thank you kindly, Cash Money McCoy. It was a pleasure doing business. And now, with the power to harvest souls, I will feed the skull of the Time Dragon and return to that moment in my life where my wife left me. Give up this outlaw game and live a second life. Happy. No longer on the run. No longer.
Oh, for goodness sakes. I did not die, Diego. Why'd you keep telling people that?
What?
We've been divorced 2 years now.
No, what? No, I was married twice. I had a second wife. I told you this a million times. She's dead. I can never love you. like I loved her.
As this telenovela moment went on, Spitjack stood there, deaf to the whole thing, and eventually lost his patience and pointed his gun to the dynamite.
I don't fucking care. I'll kill us all. I'm gonna blow the place to fucking Kingdom Come. I can't hear anymore. Nobody loves me. I'm too prickly to touch. If this doesn't go right, I reckon it might just kill us all.
Spitjack, my kids are in here. You'll blow them up if you do that.
This is the first time anyone's told me about the fucking kids. I have told you so many times that I cannot hear. There are children in this room.
There's children in the hat.
In the next
There's children in the other part. And he's trying to raise his dead wife using this thing in the middle.
What the fuck is going on? What do you mean? That is so complicated.
While this was going on, Diego tried to claw at one of his own gang members with this arcane gauntlet, hoping to siphon the life from them, but Jen caught him in the act. Caught his wrist with the chain whip, and Cash, seeing his opportunity, used his telekinesis to grab Diego's hat and save his kids. Gideon threw a net over Diego, and Jen took the opportunity to beat his face to a pulp with some of her knuckle dusters.
Yes, there are knuckle dusters in this game. Again, so many cool weapons in DC20.
Cash physically assaulted Diego's mind, and Bishaw got a few swings in, but was knocked down to the floor pretty quickly. Spitjack was fired upon by a pair of demonic-looking dragonborn with guns, but it would take more than that to take him down.
Shooting the sheriff, are we? Oh yeah? No holds barred.
In this moment of violence, Diego used his opportunity to throw his own massive chain whip around again. I will kill you.
So while poor Jen was floored on the ground, bleeding out, Diego managed to rush over, sneak away, stick his gauntlet into one of his dead allies, trying to siphon some remaining life from them, so he could power up his gauntlet and connect to the time dragon. But would it be enough? He had a single thimble of time magic within the gauntlet now.
As he wondered this, Cash Money McCoy stepped up with his kids cheering him on, and he cast the sleep spell.
And not wanting to risk anything, not leave anything to chance, he focused the entire sleep spell on Diego himself, upcast the spell, pumping more mana into it so that it would be more potent in this situation. And with that,
Diego was silenced for good.
In the meanwhile, Jen managed to grab the arcane gauntlet and use it to erase that moment in time where her neck was serrated and ripped open and heal herself. So the combat was over at this stage, but there was still one more person to save. And that was Gideon's daughter, who had been smuggled in a box into the coal cart in the next cart over by the Silver Snake Gang. But that glass storm was still raging, and so there wasn't much time before it claimed her. With that, it was over. And now it was time to make Diego pay.
I'm gonna take the hand axe, I'm gonna give it to Jenny. You wanna do the honors?
I'm smiling. You ain't gonna bother any women anymore.
And as soon as that surgery was complete, a brilliant idea came to Jen in that moment as she looked out into the storm.
I can chuck his penis out the window, turn it into glass.
This is the penis of my ex-husband.
I was about to say, somebody's gonna find this thing, and it's gonna become a whole thing where somebody's like, we can make this into a business.
And then Spitjack, who would have typically arrested an individual like Diego, looked at his sorry state of a body and came to a different decision.
There's nothing here to salvage. I'll just pick him up and drag him and throw him out the window.
As soon as he opens the window and throws Diego outside, I'm gonna lob the out the window as well.
And with that, he flies through the air, and as he lands down in this like very humiliating pose, the flies through the air and lands right in his forehead, melding with his head. And he just has a little cockhead permanently for the rest of his life.
And so the train rolled on through the storm, taking the party on to another new adventure.
My players and I had so much fun playing this very clean system, and I have to give a special thanks to two of them in particular. Rosary Blue and Little Bluebird, thank you so much for helping me with all of the drawings that went into this animated video. Listen, if anyone out there wants some banger commission art pieces for your TTRPG characters or video game OCs, these ladies have got you covered. Please check them out. Their links and description and info and all that is down below. And then finally, my goodness, thank you to all of you incredible patrons out there who have been supporting me. You are incredible. Thank you so much. There's so many of you as well. I am truly at the precipice of making YouTube my full-time career, and it's because of you, incredible people with your unbelievable support who've just made all of this possible. I would kiss you right now if I could, but I have to go now. Have a wonderful day. Go check out DC20, enjoy it, and share your favorite tabletop roleplay funny moments in the descriptions below. I would love to hear all about it. Until then, my lovelies, goodbye.